Good evening, Young Kings. Time for your more motivation this evening. Just got out of work and out of my counseling session. Decided to jump on and continue down this series. Operation Restore the Lion King. The first battle is a self-discovery. We've been on that. I think this is going to be the 6th or the 7th video. Not sure how long it's going to go, but it'll go as long as I say it's going to go. We'll continue down that path. It's been an interesting day, pretty productive day at work. Going through this large inspection at work, and it's rewarding to see a lot of the hard work paid off. On a lot of my soldiers came through in a clutch and performed admirably well during the inspection. So I was definitely proud of that. And I realized I've been very intentional at work, and I'm going to transfer some of that intention to other areas of my life to make sure I can get the same results in other areas of my life. But as a leader, I was talking with one of my mentors, who's a general, and he was telling me, he's like, hey, you're Lieutenant Colonel now. You need to understand your position and your authority. There's no more yelling. There's no more you debating about what should be done. He says, you're a leader. He said, now you just tell them what to do and you hold them accountable. And, as a young lieutenant and captain, and even some as a major, I was pretty feisty and very ambitious and very hard. But now it's more of strategic planning, and you give them the direction and you kind of give them left and right limits and you watch them. So it's kind of rewarding to see, as a lieutenant colonel, it's no longer more about what I do, what I'm capable of. It's more about how do I lead a team to help them reach their full potential. So it doesn't matter if I can go do all these things. If I can't get a team to develop a mission from conception through completion, then I'm no longer useful as a leader. So, and in that developing, just got to make sure that you give them left and right limits, because right now it becomes more of an insult when I do the work, because it's like I'm not trusting my soldiers to go out and perform. And that's a hard transition from being ambitious and being a doer to being a planner and strategic visionary, to be able to communicate something and then just give them the left and right limits to see. But this inspection we just went through proved to be rewarding in a different way. A lot of the work and effort that went into our success was a direct result of my soldiers executing some of the intents that I had. And there were still times where we had difficult conversations about the direction, but when it comes down to it, me as the leader, I give them direction and they go. So without further ado, we'll get in. Had a good workout today on the treadmill, did some sprints. So make sure I'm taking that fitness regimen into the new year. So if you haven't started on your fitness routine, get back on it. Fitness is health. You really got to, and it's not about having a six pack. It's not about being the strongest or the fastest. It's just about investing in your well-being, not only your physical well-being, but your mental well-being. I had got so busy with this inspection and things at work that I took a few days off from running and stuff of that nature. But today I was intentional about getting back in there. There's a few things that I want to go over. We're going to continue on this battle of self-discovery because I think it's important, because we're working on ourselves and it's going to help ourselves. And if we don't do it, we only have ourselves to blame as a result of that. But I was going through a book called The Pilgrimage by Paulo Coelho, I think is how you pronounce his name. And he made a statement in the book, and it stated a ship is safest at the port, but a ship is not created for the port. Who those are unaware, for those who are in the Navy, I'm in the Army, but anyways, a ship, when it's docked at the port, that is the safest location for that ship to be. However, that ship was not built for it to be dwelling at a port. It was built to travel or traverse the seas, whether it be carry troops, cargo, or whether it be a cruise ship for entertainment. When it's docked at that port, although it's the safest, that's not the intended purpose it may be. So I think that stood out to me, because just like us as we're going on this journey of self-discovery, it may be our safest bet to stay where we are, to stay less than our potential, to be in comfort, to be secure, and have this illusion of safety. That may be our safest place to be. But the reality of it is, we weren't built to be in that comfort, to stay beneath our potential. We were built to traverse the seas of adversity, of accomplishing dreams, of goals, of defining your purpose. So don't look for safety in this journey. If you're looking for something to feel secure about, then this is not a road for the faint. So if you're on this battle of self-discovery and you think it's going to be easy, and you think that it's just going to be a walk in the park, that you can turn on a light switch and you're just going to be this self-actualized person, that's not it. And if you're not expecting a real battle, then there's going to be casualties. And in the casualties of the battle of self-discovery, the casualty is yourself. If you don't go on this journey, you're going to lose yourself. You're going to become a casualty, and you're going to be left to fulfill what other people think you should be. You're going to be left to what other people want to define you as. You're going to be left to something less than what you're actually able to be. So don't become a casualty by being lazy. Don't become a casualty by trying to be docked at a port and being in safety. Let's try to get on these rough waters. Like this journey here, there's going to be some storms, as we went through the scripture yesterday. And it says when they got in the boat, there was a great storm. Just know, by you getting in this boat, there's going to be some storm. But the indictment that Yeshua placed on his disciples at the time was, "O ye of little faith." I'm just asking for the faith of a mustard seed, the size of a mustard seed. Just believe that this journey is worth traveling, and you will become better as a result of that. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a short. This is a pilgrimage. We're going ways. So there's a difference between what we're going to define as success versus significance. So in this journey, this is not for you to be the richest. It's not for you to be the strongest or this, and whatever your definition of success. Once we come to self-actualize, we're going to transition our ideal from success to significance, to something that's greater than us. So although we're going to focus on self-actualizing and being a self-discovery, we got to understand, like, we're operating in a world that doesn't revolve around us. So we're going to have a purpose that's greater than us. But in order for us to retain that purpose that's greater than us, we got to get ourselves together. So that's the purpose of this. And it was, as I was going through this thing, I started to think about the term where people says I'm one in a million, or that they're rare and this and that. And, I really started to dive into that a little more, and started to look at like what it took for us to get here. You're not one in a million. You're actually 1 in 40 million, up to 1 in 150 million. Do you know the act to conceive life into this world? Like when you were shot out of a cannon, pun intended, the sperm, a man ejaculates 40 to 150 million sperms that are competing for life. And I say competing for life because all it takes is one sperm to fertilize the egg. So of that 40 million on the low side to 150 on the high side, you competed to be here. You swam upstream and you searched for that egg, and you got fertilized. Once the fertilization happened, you found that egg. There's this thing called acceptance, that the egg had to accept the sperm. And then after it accepts it, if there's this fusion thing that takes place, and then it starts to germinate into a human being. So you're not 1 in a million. You're 1 in 40 million to me, a minimum, to 1 in 150 minimum, 50 million at maximum. Meaning, like, that's a very intentional competitive act. So if we competed even before we were developed, how much more do you think we're supposed to compete now that we actually we've been blessed with this thing called life? Because there's only one winner. I mean, I did have twins. So, I mean, if you were a twin and there were two that actually made it, or triplets, whatever. But for the most part, 90% of the time, it's a single birth. So with that being said, like, it's no accident that we're here. We're very intentional. So there's a few things I want to get over, and I'm gonna get to a scripture. And by the way, I'm no pastor. I'm a bootleg man. Just go through this. I just like um, to dive into the Word, because I know there's power there, and I believe in the Most High. The way He communicates to us is through His Word. So I use this as a means to get equipped for a lot of the things that I got to endure. So I'm not trying to be no Bible thumper with anyone, but at the same time, if you don't like it, that's on you. But the description, when I was looking at that, it's like 1 in 40 million. It took me back to Jeremiah, and Jeremiah 1:5, and it says, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. So it's like, while there were 40 million or 150 million that was swimming, God says, before I formed you. So it's like going back to Genesis, when God says He created man in His own image, and He said it was very good. So He's saying, like, even before I separated you from the 40 million or 150 million, He says, I knew you. Like, I had plans and intentions for you. And He's going to go and He says, before I formed you. So we know where conception and life comes from, because God is claiming it right here. It says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. So, like, there was a process. He knew that there was something in you that needed to be birthed into this world. And that's one of the things, like, as I go back to a comment that I made on one of the video, like, what do you put your faith in? It's like, you put your faith in yourself, because by putting your faith in yourself, you're agreeing with God that what He created was good, and that He consecrated you. Like, He knew something in you was supposed to come to life. And that's why this journey, or this battle of self-discovery, is so important, because if you don't, then that's no indictment just on you, but that's an indictment on God. Like, God, you didn't equip me to do this. But let's go on. He says, I appointed you a prophet to the nation. And I said, at last, Lord of God, behold, I do not know how to speak. So Jeremiah was coming and telling God, he was like, look, I know you said you formed me and you consecrated me, but I can't even speak because I am a youth. But the Lord said to me, do not say I am youth, because everywhere I send you, you shall go. And all that I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and to deliver you, declares the Lord. So God is saying, look, I know that you don't have everything together. Like, you got deficiencies. There's something in you that you know is wrong, but I don't need you to come back and tell me. It's like, God's like, hey, don't tell me you're young. Don't tell me you don't know how to speak. Like, where I send you, you go. And when I tell you to speak, you speak. And then He says, I'll be with you. So there's one more on that, because in the New Testament, it goes into Galatians. And Galatians deals with, it talks about in Paul. And Paul, for those who are not versed in it, Paul was one of the guys who wrote like 3/4 of the Bible, of the New Testament. So he was a steady guy. And Paul came in Galatians 1, and I'm going to start in 13. And it says, for you have heard of my former manner in life in Judaism, that I used to persecute the church and beyond measure. So Paul, before he was converted to become a follower of Christ, he used to persecute them. I mean, kill them, just made life hard on those who believed. So he's saying, you knew what I believed before. And he says, going down, he says, being more extremely zealous in my ancestral tradition. So Paul wasn't hearing the word. He was more into what traditions were than he was about the word. But then on 15, it says, but when God, who has set me apart, even from my mother's womb. So Paul is like, look, although before I wasn't a part of this team, like, God knew when I was born that I was going to go through this period of, I was going to fall away, I was going to persecute, and I was going to be against everything that I was supposed to be doing. But God knew that when He called me, like, He knew before I was in my mother's womb. He says, But when God, who has set me apart, even from my mother's womb, had called me through his grace and was pleased to reveal his son to me that I may preach among the Gentiles. So when Paul was there beating up people and crucifying people, um, he still had a calling on his life. He just had to grow into it. And I say that because a lot of us as young kings, I'm gonna put that up, but a lot of us young kings, people find us in one state of our lives, and they think that's supposed to be your only state in life. So there were probably some people who knew Paul um, when he was in the streets and he was doing these other things, and then when he made that transition, they probably called him all kind of names. You're a hypocrite, or you're a false prophet, or you're this and that. But the reality of it is, like, there's seasons in people's life. Do not let people define you by one moment. There's ability for you to grow and for you to become better. And that's part of this things of self-discovery, is discovering who we are, who God says we are, not who others say we are. Because people, I mean, they will put you in a box. And the thing about the box they put you in is going to be a small one. Um, you can realize with some people, like, they don't mind you being successful. They just don't want you to be more successful than them. They don't mind you being happy. They just don't want you to be happier than them. They don't mind you progressing in life. They just don't want you to be at a state that's better than them, because then it makes them uncomfortable. So what I'm saying is this: it's like, for us, it's like, we got to understand who we are, but not only stand who we are, but whose we are. So we're going to get back into this, and I'm at 16 minutes on the intro, but I'm sure you got something out of that. But with that being said, there was another quote that I read today on Maslow hierarchy of needs, and we may get to that on this video, or maybe on the next video. But I think it's so important because this quote, it says, "What a man can be, he must be." I'm gonna read that again. What a man can be, he must be. I'm gonna rephrase that. Like, what a king can be, he must be. Meaning, like, whatever it is in you that you're capable of doing, in order for you to reach to be full self-actualized, you got to do that. Like, you can't shy beneath your potential and still be fulfilled. In order for you to be fulfilled, you got to be all that you can be. And in order for you to be all you can be, you got to start that journey and go through this battle of self-discovery and finding out who you is. So what a man can be, he must be. So we got so far off on various different details and detours that I'm not sure you know where we picked off or we left off at. But since I'm on this journey with you, I know where we left off at. On the original list, we're on number 7. So I know we took a few detours before, but we're back on 7. Go back and watch the video and trust me. So 6 was identify what you value. Number 7 is learn something new. In learning something new, you got to get some new information, some skills. And I know there's this movement that's anti-school, and I don't subscribe like everything you learn in school is useful, but I do subscribe to learning. I think learning is essential to becoming the full version of yourself. Excuse me. So what you learn and how you learn is important. So teach yourself a new skill. I mean, and that skill may be a trade. It may be educational to go in an academic setting. It may be where you're hands-on. It may be self-study. A lot of this stuff, as far as self-actualization, I mean, this journey has put me back in an academic setting where I'm really thriving and looking for articles. I'm reading. I'm getting information in. I'm highlighting stuff. I'm printing off articles, and it's like, it feels good to be in that academic setting because I know that I'm growing. So when it talks about learning something new, I went on and figured out, got on the article about tips to learn something new. And there was like 7, and I thought it was appropriate because we're on the number 7 as well. 7 tips on how you can embrace learning something new. So tip number 1 was embrace the fear. Like, when something new is happening in your life, it comes with anxiety, and it comes with wondering, where you're questioning yourself. Are you prepared? Are you smart enough? Is this the right thing? That fear is going to come. So you got to be able to embrace the fear. Don't expect it to go away, and don't think that it won't happen. The fact that it's happened, when it happens and you get scared, tell yourself, all right, this is normal. All right, I'm in the right place. And I like to call it the syllabus effect. Like when I went to college, like on your first day of class, they give you the syllabus and they give you a list of all the things that you're going to be doing throughout that semester. And on day one of college, of a new class, of a new subject with a new environment, a professor, and all this new stuff is going on, that is one of the most intimidating feelings you can ever have, at least for me, because I'm scanning through the syllabus and it's telling me all I got to read, all these papers I got to write, and things I got to turn in for homework. And I'm looking at the syllabus and I'm measuring it against what I think about myself. And I was like, man, how am I going to get all this done? Like, this seems like a lot of work. I mean, too much. Like, don't they know that I got a life outside of this class, and that's just one class, and I got 5 or 6 other classes I got to do at the same time? So there's that element of fear that creeps in. But just like they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. If you continue on the syllabus, it starts breaking it down week by week. And you start to understand, all right, I got to do this week. I got to do this week. And if you keep on schedule, you do a little bit at a time. And if you do a little bit at a time, you won't have to do a lot. But it's those who's, goes through week by week and they haven't turned in assignments, and then all of a sudden it becomes overwhelming. So the first thing you got to understand is like, you got to embrace the fear. Like, just because you're scared don't mean that you're not supposed to do it. You got to do it in spite of being scared. And that's what courage is for. The courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing it in spite of fear. So you got to be courageous to be able to stand forward and stand tall as a young king and know, like, hey, it's okay to question yourself, but don't back out. Don't let that fear deter you from really going to where you need to go. The number 2 is be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. There is no overnight success. And if it is, it's not enduring. And that's why they talk about people who win the lottery are normally broke within 5-6 years after that. Same with pro athletes. They make millions of dollars and they normally go broke or bankrupt within 3 to 4 years after they leave the league. It's because if you don't go through the whole process, then you don't develop into the full mature version of yourself. So don't expect it to be overnight. And I'm going to save you a lot of money. I'm going to save you a lot of people presenting things to you. When somebody come and tell you, hey, do you ever want to quit working? I got this job. I got this thing. Like if it's a pyramid scheme, the get rich quick schemes, I'm telling you now, don't sign up for it. If you got to go recruit people and you got to do all this stuff, I'm going to tell you right now, those things do not work. A few people get ahead and everybody else feeds them. So be patient and follow your process. With that, be patient. Take baby steps, like one step at a time. Like when you were born, you didn't come out walking. You had to learn how you had to be held and transported everywhere. Then after a few months went by, you start to crawl and you get a little more independent. And then you start to mature and you were able to walk, and then you were running around. So that's the same step with this with learning. You got to be continuous to do that. And then persistence. And one thing I think college teaches people, the people who make it through college are not the smartest, but it's there for 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, depending on your degree or whatever it may be. Is there for those who's able to follow a task from conception through completion. So in order for you to get there, you're really going to have to start being persistent. And I think that's a key attribute, is to be persistent. You don't have to be the smartest. You just got to not quit. You got to continue to go. And then practice self-awareness. And this is our battle of self-actualization or self-discovery. Like, practice self-awareness. And I was reading an article a few months back, and maybe even longer back, about how you talk to yourself is important. Be aware how you talk to yourself. Like, practice self-awareness. Like, if you're struggling in something, don't down talk yourself and say, well, I'm never going to get this. I don't understand this. I don't know how to do this. And it was saying in the article, like, if you just add one word at the end of that, just put yet. at the end of that statement, and it gives you the ability to introduce into the atmosphere the possibility that you may learn how to do it later. Like, let's say I'm I'm struggling at math. I don't know how to do this math problem. And then if you add yet, I don't know how to do this math problem yet. You see how it turns from a period to a possibility by just adding yet. So instead of just saying, I suck at math, I don't know how to do this math problem, and you make it permanent, now you make it with a possibility by saying, I don't know how to do this math problem yet. And you introduce your mind to start searching for a creative way to figure out how to do that. So practice self-awareness. And then other thing is like, number 6 is like, don't take things so seriously. Like, everybody's not going to be a genius in the head of a class. You know, they say 50% of all lawyers graduate at the bottom of their class. But the reality of it is they still call that bottom half, 50%, they still call them lawyers. I would rather you be, and this is no indictment on essential workers or anything else, and I don't want you to take like belittling them, but I would rather you be at the bottom of the class and be called a lawyer than employee of the month as the head cashier at your local grocery store. You know, so don't live beneath your potential. So don't take things too seriously. Like, well, just because I didn't get an A in the class don't mean that I'm not any good. There's a saying that says comparison kills contentment. As long as you compare what you have to what other people have, you will never be content, because there's always going to be somebody that has more than you. There's always going to be somebody that's smarter than you. There's always going to be somebody stronger than you. That's why it's called self-discovery. It's to discover yourself, not to discover what other people's ability are. And then number 7 was kind of believing in yourself. So, and that goes back to agreeing with God. Like when God say he created man, he created you in his own image. So what God is saying, and he said was very good. So when you believe in yourself, you're agreeing with God, like, God, what you created is very good. And understanding that process will help you embrace the art of learning something new. So your journey along this route is one of learning. Learning doesn't end. Learning is one of those things that need to keep evolving. And the next 2 steps, I'm going to go through them pretty rapidly. Back on 8 is keep a journal, being able to write things down. And I'm doing more of that, and I'm going to go get a more official journal so I can do this. I do it at work. I have a work log, and then I put quotes in there, and I date it. And then I go back and I read them. And I was like, man, this is what I was thinking back then. So I know there's benefits in journaling so you can get your train of thought. There's times I go back and I watch some videos that I've done previously, and it gets me into my mindset of what I was thinking back then. And then number 9 on the road to self-discovery is talk to a therapist. A lot of people probably would discredit that. And I did for many years. I thought it was a form of weakness, like that I can't navigate through this thing on my own. But when you got somebody that's out external to you, that's able to sow into you and reflect on some of the things you've been through and then give you some tips and things to navigate through, it's been beneficial for me. I'm not saying all therapists, and that's why I think it's important to match it up with someone that's actually beneficial to you. As I mentioned before, the reason I selected mine was because it was a quote that she had on her website, and it talked about he who looks without dreams and he who looks within awakens. And I understood that there was an awakening thing that's happened to me. So I'm coming up on just about 30 minutes, and I didn't get into the Maslow hierarchy of needs. So I may do this on the next one, be able to get through and do the Maslow hierarchy needs, and because it talks about self-actualization. So since we got long, I don't want to do injustice to it. We're going to continue on the battle of self-discovery. And I want to end with that quote, and it's to challenge you. It's like, whatever a man can be, he must be. So if you got the capability, then you really need to start putting application to that, to really start getting into this battle of self-discovery, self-actualization, and really understanding not only who you are, but whose you are. So we'll come back. I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow or the next day, but we'll be back and we'll continue this journey for this battle of self-discovery. Make it a great night, Young Kings.